that very dark place that you're pulled into. What's wrong with me? Why am I an idiot? You know, when I'm working with people, I say over and over, um, there's nothing wrong with you. There's so much that is wrong with our culture. And you are a product of that culture, and your neurology is patterned to disconnect. That's what our instruction manual has told us, that we've been given by our culture. And that, that sense of disconnection runs so deeply, it's so rampant that we stop seeing it. And we feel the self in here and the world out there. And there is no such thing as that boundary that separates us from the world. And so the only way we can feel a boundary that doesn't exist is by desensitizing ourselves. So we numb ourselves, we dull ourselves to the world, and contract into this busyness of the head that is thinking. And because we've contracted into the head, we open to a certain kind of information and close the door on another kind of information. So I think one of the reasons that we are so avid to keep up with the news, to keep up with Facebook and Tinder and whatever it might be, is that we are essentially starved for information, because every moment of the present teems with more information than you could possibly encompass. The world is alive with presence and transformation and currents. Everything that happens in the universe passes through your body. You feel it all. And I think what happens, I know this happened for me, we develop sensitivities. No one can develop every sensitivity. There are too many sensitivities even to name. A sensitivity to music, a sensitivity to color, a sensitivity to someone's heartbeat. But when our life depends on it, the sensitivity awakens. And from personal experience, when I was a teenager, I was traveling by bicycle through Europe and the Middle East and India and Japan. And there was this moment, as the sun was lowering to the horizon, where I had to find a place to sleep in a country I'd never been to before, around a corner I'd never seen before. And every single night I was guided, and it was such a tangible sense of being guided to a place where I could safely spend the night. And I slept undisturbed every single night along that journey. And so that my life depended on finding a place to sleep in Syria, in India, in Iraq, wherever it might have been. And I sensitized to it. There's a young man I've read about who was born blind, and he learned to echolocate. He makes a little clicking sound with his tongue, and he can ride a bicycle down a street, and he knows where the curb is. He knows that's a fire hydrant. He knows he echolocates. Again, his life depended on this sensitivity. And I think if only we could awaken to the realization that on a personal level, your life depends on your sensitivity to the present. And on on a communal level, that our continuing life as a culture depends on our sensitivity to the world, to nature in which we are embedded, then we could begin to harmonize rather than seeking to control. And I think control and harmony are desperately confused in our culture. I think they are opposites. Control has to do with a set of ideas that you impose to systematize something. Harmony is a quality in which every part of an organic whole responds to and yields to every other part. So there's nothing that is resisting the reality of the moment. And my God, if we could begin to harmonize with the world rather than seeking to exploit it, everything would change. But I don't think that's possible until we come back to the body. Because as long as we sit separate from it, we will seek to control it. And there, you know, as you say, the humility that brings you back to this thrumming intelligence that is coupled with the world's intelligence. I don't have any real sense that I am thinking alone. I am thinking with all of this. My thinking is informed by, sustained by a field, a mindful field that holds the world, the universe in its embrace. And as long as I dissociate from the body, I desensitize myself to that field. And, you know, if you want a real information feed, drop down into the body and find a still point within it and just receive all that is happening in the body, through the world. There's more information there than you could possibly process. I think, you know, we only find the present insufficient when we are insufficiently present.
It's so wonderful that you, how you portray your thinking and your felt sense experience of being a thinking being, because in the beginning of the conversation you talked about like the head and the heart, and there is like no coherence. And yes, at the moment what we define as our mind is a trauma symptom. It's not a mind, it's a trauma symptom. But in the end, again, we are right, we are highly intelligent, but our intelligence can only reawaken also in our awesome mind when it somehow dies around every definition and orientation that it has learned. It's like our basic orientation in the world is based on friction. It's based on disharmony. And harmony is such a great example, because for me, being in harmony and in coherence with everything around, my conditioned little girl says, shrink, listen to everything else. Oh, there is a bug. Oh, there is a man. Oh, there is a window. Oh, let's be in coherence, in harmony. That is called collapse. It's the opposite of harmony. It is me creating suffering by shutting down even more. So for harmony, I have to live up to my too muchness, my intensity, to everything that I am. And at the end of the day, our challenge is stopping underestimating ourselves. I mean, we are strong and we are powerful. So harmony, I agree so much around harmony being such a twisted term. It's almost practical that culture twisted harmony or misunderstood harmony in such a thorough way that we can say it's just 180-degree different from what you think it is. Volume up, show up, glow as crazy, because you are a glowing living being, and existence is waiting for you, and suffering and shutting down doesn't save anybody, not you and not anybody around. So there is something of this, yes, harmony, and at the same time, let's be cautious with the word, the information, without the energy that needs to be realigned with the wording in the moment of the wording, because otherwise we're like, oh yeah, harmony. And then I'm like, no, not this harmony. That's a problem. We want to go towards a solution. Just 180 degrees the other way around. And the other thing is, when your life depends on that, you do not need a process, you do not need trauma therapy, you do not need a tool set. It's just here. And I know about Greta Thunberg standing there in front of the most powerful politicians of the world saying, my name is Greta Thunberg, and I want you to panic. Yes. And that's it. There is something of embodiment. Yes, it's titration, and yes, it's trauma therapy, and yes, it's a lot of safety and comfort and a lot of tissues. Yes. And no. This is also a jump into panic. And another shocking moment was for me that once, I think in a spiritual setting, somebody quoted somebody else around, meditate as if the gun would be on your head. And the teacher was interrupting him saying, the gun is on your head. So it's not that dissociation creates boundary. It creates the illusion of boundary.
Yes.
There is no boundary. There is no boundary. So it's like us, we are all one. Oh, beware. What are you talking here about? We are all one. Yeah. There is no starving child in Africa. It doesn't exist. You are already starved. So beware which kind of quote you share on Facebook. It's not so sexy. So there is something of us, and I remember just from my own experience, not going into detail, but I experienced, and it taught me so much. I spent hours in a complete shutdown in my nervous system, in a traumatic situation, like just complete. And the perfection of this biological happening is insane. I can't describe the perfection. I was there like, am I dissociated right now? It was brilliant. The amount, the perfection of illusion was perfect. It was just perfectionized over billions of years. And it happened in the most horrific situation of my whole life. So there is something of me really knowing that this kind of woo, love and light might be the doorway to hell. It might be happening because hell is happening right now, and because our instincts know. They wouldn't dissociate if they wouldn't know. So I'm so sorry, like you quickly shared with me about your story, like not being able to digest culture and breaking free very early. And I envy you for that. I think I'm always a little bit like the advocate for the shadow and the trauma stuff, just because I know, whoa, this needs your warrior qualities 1000% every day. And I mean, not for everybody, just because every individual has an individually beautiful and individually challenging path back into embodiment. But I do not want to miss a chance to say, I want to warn you, and you will never regret bowing again to your instincts. But be warned, and ask for support and ask for tool sets. They are around, and we have to create a culture that takes this thing, embodiment, serious. And it's not about, I want to contribute something to saving the planet. It's not even about climate change. It's about this gun being on your head. You can be the most egoistic asshole in the world. Just be desperate and be strong.
And the gun is there. The gun is real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we
Yeah.
are, we all live under a death sentence. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the, you know, the sword hanging above the head that
Yeah.
pulls the world into focus,
Yeah.
that gives this moment its richness, its transient beauty.
Yes. And it's presence that in the first moment might be just a fear-induced presence.
Yeah.
You just get present because your instincts guide you the way. There is no safety without presence. So when we tap back into the guidance of our instincts and our nervous system, and I truly want to spend at least 100 more conversations with you around the outer world guiding us, because I agree, this hell around guides us into grace, into love, into healing. So I want to really spend as many words with you as possible on that, because I think the co-created field of a culture knowing this and exploring this depends on people talking about it, because language isn't empty, isn't fully empty. It builds a web, it builds a field. I want to build together with you another part of this field, because I do not hear enough people talking about the grace of hell leading us the way, or the grace of trauma. No, the grace of trauma embodying the solution within all the time. So I want to explore that with more words and more clarity. Coming back to something that I forgot now. The fear-induced presence. If we tap back into our instincts and learn to differentiate between our conditioned kind of collapse, which feels like self-love and comfort zone, etc., and our instincts leading us, they lead us into the only safety that is truly here for us. And that is full rage, full energy, nothing, holding nothing back, full embodiment, full self-love, full forgiveness, radical self-forgiveness, radical forgiveness with everything around, radical freedom. Our instincts know the way. Our instincts know the way.
I just know that to be so deeply true for myself. I've often said, rage saved my life, and
And how could it be different? You are a tiger. How could it be different?
yeah, yeah,
6,000 years are nothing. And not they are only nothing. They obviously didn't work, because it doesn't save our life.
yeah.
So we have a dysfunctional plan B, being ridiculously young. Just an invention of privileged people.
Yeah.
Being traumatized because they lost the female.
Yeah.
That's the competition.
Yeah. And for me, maybe just in closing, for me that loss of the female, and I'm so glad nothing to do with men and women, male and female. It is the complementary union of tension within each of us that ushers us into wholeness. The female element within me, the male element within me, they're either suffering through a divorce, or they are in a marriage of respect and appreciation. And I think that the divorce from the female shows up most clearly in this wound um, that our culture inflicts on us deliberately, systematically, which is the wound that separates our thinking from our being.